Since the dawn of man, we have raced against the clock, minute after minute, hour after hour. In an industry so regulated, is there a way to beat time? Only you hold the key.
What is going on, guys? I've had so many people reach out to me about their logs, hours of service. Hey man, how can I maximize my profitability with my clock? How can I utilize it better to make it easier for me? And it does seem a bit confusing, guys. I mean, we'll start with the basics here. I mean, when you're talking about your logs, whether you're doing paper logs, you were before 2000, you're driving a 99 or older truck and you're on paper logs, or you're driving a 2000 or newer truck and you have to be on ELDs. The log process is essentially the same, okay? Whatever you can do on an ELD, you can do in a logbook. So we're not talking about the different types of logging devices. We're talking about the actual hours of service right now. So when you look at this picture here that I'm throwing up right now, you've got 4 essential clocks, okay? 4 meters measuring time. You have an 8-hour rest break at the top, an 11-hour driving below that, a 14-hour on duty, and then a 70-hour on duty. So we're going to talk about these from the bottom up, essentially, because this is what we need to start with. We need to start with the 70-hour on duty. Okay, when you're talking about hours of service, you have 70 hours to utilize. Work hours, which involves driving and on duty combined. This both counts against this 70-hour clock, okay, for an 8-day period. If you start on a Monday, okay, Monday's 1, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, okay? 8 days. Whatever you drive on Monday when you started out, you will not get back on your 70 as what they call a recap until Monday at midnight the next week. That's why it's an 8-day clock. So here's the issue. How can you keep this even? Because obviously 70 hours divided by 8 is not an even amount. And it's definitely not 11 hours per 24-hour period. Okay? So when you take 70 divided by 8, it gives you 8.75, which in time terms is 8 hours and 45 minutes when you're talking about hours and minutes. There's 2 ways you can run your daily clock, and we're still on the 70-hour meter here. We're talking about this right now. There's 2 ways you can run your daily clock. You can run 8 hours or 45 minutes with drive time and on duty combined, and you will always have hours every 24-hour period. Every 8 day, you will constantly get those hours back every 8 days. You never have to do what's called a reset. A reset's where you'll have to sit for 34 hours, and you will actually have to sit in off-duty or sleeper berth or any combination to get your 70-hour clock back full again. The reason people have to do this is because they try to run as much as they possibly can nonstop. And you can do that. So when you run 11 hours every single day, obviously you take 70 divided by 11, you're getting like 6 days, 6 and some change, okay, is what you can run. You can't run a full 8 days. You can only run 6 and some change, okay? And some people like that. But what people aren't thinking as well is that on duty time has to come off that 70 as well. And the reason that you have to have on duty time is anytime you're fueling, you got to be in on duty. You have to do 2 inspections a day. Only one of them have to be in on duty status. Okay, you have to do a pre-trip and a post-trip on your truck and trailer. Anytime you get pulled into an inspection, anytime you get pulled over by the law, you have to be in on duty. If you're loading or unloading, you need to be in on duty. So when you start talking about it, you start thinking to yourself, well, this time adds up every day. Okay, if I'm on duty for 45 minutes this day, to keep my hours even, I need to only run 8. Well, what happens a lot of times is a lot of guys they'll run their 11 out and they'll say they'll put 35 minutes on duty, on the clock. So that's 11 and a half hours a day. So essentially by the 6th day, they're done. They can't move anymore. Their 70's empty. They have no choice but to take a 34. And a lot of people like doing that. They like taking that 34-hour break, gets them out of the truck, gets them to do whatever they want. And kudos to you guys that can do that. All I can think in my head is, man, if I'm sitting still for 34 hours, that's a day and a half I've lost money on. So I do my best to keep our hours on recaps, even being a team truck. And so that's how we run. We run generally about 8 hours. We'll drive 8 hours a day, maybe 8 hours, 15 minutes. We'll leave that 30-minute window for on duty for fueling, inspection, unexpected, like getting pulled into a weigh station, getting inspected there, loading or unloading. So now that you kind of have a simple understanding about the 70 hour, all right, let's go to the 14 hour. The 14 hour on duty clock, what this does is, as soon as you start any on duty status, whether it's on duty, driving, yard movement, anything like that, it starts counting down. Okay, once that 14-hour clock starts counting down, you can't stop it but one way. There's only one way to stop it, and that's what they call a split break. And we'll get into that in just a second. All right, but that 14-hour, essentially, once you start your day, it does not stop. You have basically 14 hours to do whatever you're gonna do before you have to take a 10-hour break. The 10-hour break every day will replenish that 14 hours. It'll replenish your 11-hour, and it'll replenish your 8-hour, okay? All right, let's move on up to the next one, the 11-hour clock. Obviously, guys, this is 11-hour driving. You have, every time your clock resets, if you have 11 hours available on your 70, you can drive 11 hours in that shift, maximum. That's it, all right? 8-hour rest break. This means when you start driving, say you start first thing in the morning at 7 a.m., well, you have 8 hours as soon as you kick your clock on before you have to take a mandatory 30-minute break. That's all that clock is. It just lets you know that you have 8 hours before you got to take a 30-minute break. You can drive 7 hours and 59 minutes straight, stop and take a 30-minute break. That's all it means. It's really nothing. And your electronic log devices will always display at the top the clock with the lowest amount of time on it. So if you have 8 hours available for your rest break, but you've only got 2 hours left on your 70, even though your 11 hours says you can drive 6 hours, it's going to display that 2 hours that's on your 70. That's what I'm talking about. Because even though you have 6 hours available on your 11-hour drive, doesn't mean you have it on your 70. So look at your 70-hour clock like a reserve. You have to pull from it constantly. Pull from it. If it's not available on the 70, you can't drive it. You can't move it. You can't. Now, there is an exception to that. A lot of people have went to bed, they've stopped at night, and they've parked their truck, and they've done their post trip, and they forgot to take themselves out of on duty. When they wake up the next morning, they've been in on duty for 10 and a half hours. That's okay. You can edit that on your ELDs or on your paper logs. You can go back and whatever, you know. Obviously, there is no on duty button if you're on paper logs, and paper logs are going to be for people that are in 99 model vehicles or newer or older. So when it comes to ELDs, 9 times out of 10, depending on what carrier you run for or what system you're using, you should be able to edit that on duty back to sleeper berth, and then, you know, just show like whatever your time allotted for your inspection was, whether it was 8 minutes, 11 minutes, 13 minutes, whatever you're doing. So on duty is editable. We'll start talking about the editing. On duty is editable. Yard movement, which is an on duty status, is editable. Off duty and personal conveyance are editable. So you cannot edit drive time. All right, just remember that, guys. You cannot edit that at all. Thanks for watching part 1. Don't forget to stay tuned for part 2. If it's your first time joining the channel, don't forget to like, sub, and share the channel. Get that information out there. That's what it's all about. Till the next one, guys, stay safe. God bless. Freight Skater out.